On today's AMC Movie Talk, we are going to talk about Seth MacFarlane hosting the Oscars, Mark Millar guiding the comic book franchise for Fox Studios, and Mark Webb returning for Spider-Man, and a whole lot more. So hang tight. Here we go.
Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. This is episode number 19, originally recorded on Thursday, October the 4th, 2012, at the beautiful AMC Burbank 16 in Burbank, California. Peter Griffin at the Oscars. Thanks a lot for joining us. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Greetings, film fans. John Campy here. Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. As always, this is our movie podcast, keeping you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and our 2 cents on it. Joining me, first of all, a couple of regulars sitting to my immediate right. IGN's own Miss Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Hi there.
And sitting beside Amy Rose is, of course, Mr. John Schnepp.
What's up?
How you doing, guys?
Hey,
good, thanks.
What's going on?
Now, for those of you who may have been trying to tune in to watch our live show, we decided not to do it live. We've been having some problems with our internet provider in here, and so we decided, you know what? Instead of risking sending out a poor stream to people who are tuning in to watch live, we decided, let's just not do it live. We're just going to pre-record it. So you're probably only watching this on YouTube, so we're very glad that you've decided to join us. Once again, this is AMC Movie Talk. We're going to catch you up to date on everything in the world of movie news, and we're going to start that right away the way we start every episode of AMC Movie Talk, with our news flash. Are you going into Avengers withdrawal? Don't worry. Marvel is sending a little fix your way to hold you over until the May 3rd release of Iron Man 3. It's been confirmed that Marvel will release the first teaser trailer for the next Iron Man film later this month. On Tuesday, October 23rd at 12:01 a.m., you will get your first taste of the next Tony Stark adventure. Iron Man 3 once again stars Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Don Cheadle, Jon Favreau, and this time the gang is joined by Ben Kingsley and Guy Pearce.
The first poster for the upcoming Russell Crowe Mark Wahlberg film Broken City has hit the web. The movie centers on a cop turned PI, Wahlberg, who is hired by the mayor, Crowe, to find out if his wife is having an affair. When he confirms that yes, she is, she soon turns up dead, and the PI is drawn into a vast political conspiracy. Broken City is set to open in AMC theaters everywhere on January 18th.
Also, they could title that film She Had It Coming.
No.
Kidding! Harry Potter just can't seem to get away from the magical or supernatural. Having come off his supernatural thriller, The Woman in Black, actor Daniel Radcliffe has just had his first official image released for his new supernatural film, Horns. Based on the novel by Joe Hill, Horns is a love story that revolves around a 26-year-old man who wakes up one morning from a blackout hangover and finds horns sprouting from his head. No. As the horns grow bigger by the day, he finds himself accused of the rape and murder of his girlfriend. What's more, the horns seem to give him his own set of supernatural abilities, forcing anyone to tell him the truth or give in to brutal urges. Horns will be released sometime in 2013.
Different take on Pinocchio, kind of?
Right. Not the horns. I guess see Nicolas Cage. Not the horns. Not the horns.
Emmy Award-winning writer Danny Strong has been hired to write the screenplay for the third and fourth, because they're splitting it in 2 installments of the Hunger Games series, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 and The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, ironically enough. If Danny's name sounds familiar or his face looks familiar to you, you may be a Buffy nerd, and you may recognize him as one of the trio of 3 nerds from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like I do, in which he played Jonathan, and Gilmore Girls, where he played Doyle. Mockingjay Part 1 is targeted for a November 21st, 2004 release date, and Part 2, the final in the series, will be released on November 20th, 2015. If you want to know why they hired an actor, it's because he's also a writer. He won an Emmy, as we've said, for winning Game Change on HBO.
We recently told you that director Rupert Wyatt had left the Planet of the Apes sequel. Wyatt had directed the first Rise of the Planet of the Apes and was set to take on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but walked away from the project when he felt the studio wanted the film too soon. Well, Fox has announced that director Matt Reeves, who helmed such movies as Cloverfield and Let Me In, has been hired to direct the new Apes film. Fox has announced that the new film would be released Memorial Day 2014. No official word yet if that release date still stands, or if actors James Franco or Freida Pinto will indeed return.
Wanting a Little House on the Prairie? Well, you're not alone. It looks like there are plans over at Sony to bring the beloved stories to the big screen. David Gordon Green, who directed Jonah Hill in the comedy The Sitter, will be helming Little House on the Prairie, it looks like, for Sony. The 9-book story first began in 1932 with the publication of Little House in the Big Woods, recalling Laura Ingalls Wilder's own recollections of growing up with her family in a log cabin in 1871. A little bit of history. The second book was titled Little House on the Prairie, and its title became associated with the overall series. No word yet on potential production dates.
Seth MacFarlane is officially your host for the 2013 Academy Awards. Mostly known for his television work with shows like The Family Guy, American Dad, and The Cleveland Show, MacFarlane recently wrote, directed, and starred in, well, his voice anyway, the comedy Ted with Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis. MacFarlane just also hosted Saturday Night Live, which many speculated served as a sort of pre-audition for the Oscars gig.
Unlike The Hunger Games or Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it's now official that The Amazing Spider-Man has found a way to bring back both their star and their director from the original mega-hit reboot. Following the huge success of The Amazing Spider-Man, which took in over $750 million in worldwide box office sales, it's been announced that star Andrew Garfield and director Mark Webb will be returning for the sequel. Meanwhile, actress Emma Stone is still in negotiations for the sequel, but it is expected to return as Gwen Stacy. It would be shocking if she did not. The next Spider-Man is set to go into production in just a few months with a planned May 2nd, 2014 release date.
Comic book writer Mark Millar has been hired as creative consultant on all Fox's Marvel character movies. Fox Studios, for those of you who may not know, currently owns the movie rights to such Marvel comic book properties as X-Men, Fantastic Four, and most of the secondary characters associated with them. In a message to his fans, Miller wrote, "My biggest thanks has to go to Joe Canahan, I think. It was Joe who suggested me to the bigwigs at Fox for this role, and he's always been a supporter of what I did in comics like The Ultimates and so on. He and Matthew Vaughn, both of whom have a very strong relationship with Fox, really pushed for me to get this gig, and I just wanted to publicly thank them both for their support." Miller is well known for writing the Marvel event Civil War, Ultimate X-Men, Wolverine, Old Man Logan, Spider-Man, Ultimate Fantastic Four, The Ultimates, and the Wanted and Kick-Ass franchises. And that is your news flash. Hey, listen, folks, before we get into some of these stories and delve a little more deeply, I just want to remind you that you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll see a link below me right now where you can subscribe to the channel. That way you can keep up to date on everything that we're doing at AMC Movie News with not only the news and editorials and lists, but also, of course, AMC Movie Talk. So make sure you click subscribe below or go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/AMC Theaters and click the little subscribe button, and it's just as simple as that. With that being said, let's get into some of these stories. Let's start with this one. I wasn't going to, but we should start with this one. The Oscars for me, for those of you who do not know, is my second favorite day of the year. It really is. I'm not being facetious. There's Christmas and there's the Oscars. I've always been such a huge movie fan, and the Oscars is just the culmination of the year in movies. I love it. I enjoy it. I don't always agree with what happens there, but it doesn't matter because it's awesome. It's great. And so I just love the Oscars. And I'm always particularly interested in who's going to host the Oscars. The Oscars have had some fabulous hosts. Mm-hmm. Billy Crystal is the king of the Oscars today. I thought Steve Martin was a really good host. I didn't think Jon Stewart did all that bad of a job. I think he was okay. They've had some disasters. Ellen DeGeneres, never let that happen again.
Anne Hathaway, James
Franco, disaster. So I'm always curious about who's going to host. And they announced, Seth MacFarlane put out this great video with him and his dad. Seth MacFarlane, creator of The Family Guy, is your host for the 2013 Oscars. Now, let me throw this out to you guys. Now, I have always had this rule for myself, personally, that I like movie personalities hosting the Oscars. Having a television personality like an Ellen DeGeneres or whatever hosting the Oscars makes as much sense to me. Here's my analogy of, the best plumber in the world hosting, the ESPY Awards, the ESPN Sports Awards. Makes no sense. Two different fields, totally different thing. So I prefer having a movie personality. Seth MacFarlane just wrote, directed, starred in my opinion, the best comedy of the year. I think he qualifies. Personally, I like this pick. Amy Rose, let's start with you. Do you not like this pick, and why?
I do like it. Initially, I was like, because I feel the same exact way. Like, it's a night of the movies. It should be hosted by someone in the movies. You named two of who were also my favorites, Steve Martin and Billy Crystal, who's King, and they're actors / comedians. They've done it. So I feel like someone like that who really knows the life behind film, as well as can translate it to a fun, way for the audience, is the way that it hits home run for me. But I loved Ted. I think he's very, very obviously witty and like cutting edge and very relevant right now. So I think he's going to do a good job. And I mean, the last time they tried to really hit the younger demo with Anne Hathaway and James Franco,
not so good.
That was a failure. So I think this is a good way to unite both sets, of the audience. I think it will be good.
Snap, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, after mentioning, the Anne Hathaway, James Franco, which I thought, that's going to be cool, and they'll try different. It might be experimental or whatever.
Oh yeah, I liked it when they announced the Franco Hathaway. I liked
wow,
it. It was a great idea.
Great idea. Not so great idea. So,
she overcompensated for his lack of energy.
Yeah, just awkward strangeness. It's already a really long show, like 4 hours. We don't need the extra long, weirdness. But I think just watching him do those roasts, be the host of the Comedy Central roasts, is
really
what sold me on it. Because sometimes I think he can be a little too like winky wink towards audience, and he has a bit of smarm to him. But when he did those, I was like, wow, he actually he can hold his own against these other like really raw comedians. And I think he's really into musicals. So he's actually going to add and maybe even write some of them. So
maybe a Billy Crystal-esque vibe to it, where he kind of like introduces the best pictures with his own little skit or something.
I think that'll probably happen. I think they'll maybe like steal a little bit of stuff from the MTV Movie Awards and do an incorporating him into movies and stuff. So
he's definitely coming.
Billy Crystal's done that a lot too over the years.
Right.
Those little skits.
I love him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think. For me, one of the best things that he's done the last couple of years, I remember the Family Guy was recently up for an Emmy for Best Comedy or whatever like that. And so, or at least was in the category, and he wanted a nomination. So, it is standard practice for movie studios and television studios to send out these for your consideration ads. It's like, hey, Meryl Streep, for your consideration, Meryl Streep in our movie, she was awesome. Consider voting for her in the awards. Seth MacFarlane sends out this one sheet to all the Emmy voters, and it's just a picture of Peter Griffin standing there looking kind of serious, and the text above him reads, "Come on, you rich, bloated Brentwood Jews, let us into your little club."
That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
I'm like, I would vote for you just on the basis of this alone. He's terrific, and let's mention the Saturday Night Live thing. I wasn't really sure how. I mean, I love Family Guy. I hated the first couple of seasons. I don't know why, but I've just become a really huge Family Guy fan. An interesting thing to talk about. Hugh Jackman is also another guy who I thought did a pretty decent job hosting the Oscars. And he brings the Broadway experience, right? He can do this. He can sing and he can dance. And I don't know if Seth MacFarlane can dance, but he can certainly sing and do some really entertaining stuff.
And it'd be funny to watch him try.
Can he do backflips?
Backflips, yeah.
I would tune in for that. But you were mentioning Steve Martin. I bring this up once in a while. My all-time favorite joke ever told at the Oscars. This is right in the middle of a stretch where Crystal hosted like 7 years in a row, and they had Steve Martin come in and host, just kind of in between one. And Steve Martin gets up, and I think it was his very first joke. And most people don't even find it that funny, but I almost died. Every time I still watch it on YouTube, I almost die. He said this. Steve Martin is in center stage. He goes, hosting the Oscars, you got to picture Steve Martin saying this. Hosting the Oscars is like making love to a beautiful woman. I only get to do it when Billy Crystal's out of town. And that killed me. I don't know why.
His delivery is so good.
He's so good.
He's so good.
And so I would love to. But, other people have talked about, I'd like to get your impression of this. Like, I've always said, because I like the movie star posh, I'd love to see George Clooney host the Oscars.
George Clooney would be fantastic.
Robert Downey Jr. is a guy who gets mentioned a lot these days. Who else jingles around in your head of somebody you'd like to see host the Oscars sometime?
I mean, George is like the epitome of cool. And
Hollywood.
In Hollywood.
Yeah.
He's just like, he's that guy. Like, men love him, women love him. I just think he would just be so cool and effortlessly cool. He'd be really cool. I mean, as an actor, I love Ben Kingsley, but he might be a little dry. But sometimes I think he can really command attention of a stage like that because he's very theatrical as well.
He would just keep yelling at people for not referring to him as Sir Ben.
Hey, that's cool. That's fun. I'm trying to think who else.
His co-host would be F. Murray Abraham.
They should have him come in just to do that. They should just have Ben Kingsley occasionally throughout the telecast just yell at people for not referring to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Kingsley. It's Sir Ben.
Right. That'd be great. All the Sirs. Just get them all in a row.
Who else?
say Ving Rhames and Danny Trejo. Like
Trejo.
I'm a fan of like maybe like double teaming it, like sort of like how they did with Anne
Steve
Hathaway
Martin
and James Franco.
and Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin did that one
Oh
year.
my God. Machete, don't text.
Yeah.
Machete, don't text.
And Ving Rhames just saying a couple of dry things. You know?
All right, let's move on to the next topic here. You know, it caused a big happy stir around the film fan universe when it was announced that Joss Whedon was not only returning to direct Avengers 2, but that he was kind of going to be shepherding, kind of overseeing all the other Avengers movies leading up to Avengers 2, kind of a creative consultant, if you will. Well, not to be outdone, Fox Studios has decided to appoint their own godfather of their comic universe, at least their Marvel comic properties.
The only ones that matter.
In Mark Millar. You know, John, you are more versed in the comic book world than any of us here. When you first heard about Mark Millar's kind of taking over this big shepherding role, your thoughts, what do you think about this?
Well, I'm in the middle right now because it's like it seems more like grandstanding. Like I think he's a great writer. I mean, I loved his take on the Ultimates. It actually made me buy the Avengers again, which was like dead to me for like 15 years or something.
Wow.
He's an incredible writer. He's able to flip stories and add fresh perspectives on stale things. So I think that's for them to hire him is a great move because all of their adaptations have sucked.
Right.
So get someone who knows what they're doing and listen to him. So my only fear is that he got hired because Joss Whedon is like in charge of all this stuff over here. So they're like, well, we need our Joss Whedon, but he's not Joss Whedon.
No.
He doesn't direct. He's never made a TV show. He writes comics. So and he's hired as an executive consultant, which is like, they could be like, you're just a name. And then now we're going to do what we want. So I'm a little afraid. I'd like to see him like actually, you know, come up with an outline. Like, how are we going to take our properties and like do what Marvel's doing? You know,
Right.
even though it is Marvel characters, like how do we like weave these guys together and make like 3 or 4 movies with these characters that we have? And how do we make it cool?
It's a step in the right direction, definitely. I loved Kick-Ass and Wanted. I thought they were both good. I don't think Wanted got enough love. Sure, it was, you know, its own
Wanted
genre.
was great.
Thought it was really cool. And
I
thought-
really like Wanted,
Me too.
actually. I
don't
really
think
did.
it got a lot of love, but Kick-Ass, again, it was one of those sleeper hits that I saw and I thought it was so clever and so good. And I think it's definitely a good, you know, does he have the same kind of street cred as Joss? No. And, you know, different kind of muscles to flex, but I do think it's a step in the right direction because what I've seen I've really liked.
But he didn't direct those.
No, he wrote them.
Right.
No.
But just the fact that he's going to be, you know, a part of the overall process,
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but Frank Miller directed this. I don't know. I mean, just because you can write a comic doesn't mean that you can direct.
Of course
I agree.
not.
Yeah.
Like
Of course
Frank
not.
Miller directed The Spirit, and
And destroyed it.
But it was beautiful.
It was really hard to watch.
See, a lot of this comes down to exactly what you were bringing up. Like in Hollywood, you know, that term producer can mean anything. Can mean absolutely anything. And term executive consultant or creative consultant, what that can mean anything. So take this with a grain of salt that, okay, maybe Mark Millar's role here is really going to be completely finite.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
it'll be totally small, really not have much influence, whatever. Let's assume for a moment that they're really giving him a Joss Whedon kind of role, where he's going to like shepherd this stuff. You know, you mentioned the X-Men universe. Just as a side note, can you imagine, forget DC trying to do an Avengers build-up thing. Imagine doing just an X-Men universe build-up thing to an Age of Apocalypse. I've been pushing for an Age of Apocalypse. But anyway, that aside, I respect Mark Millar as a comic writer a great deal. I actually think, I'm surprised so many Kick-Ass fans haven't actually read the Kick-Ass books.
Right.
Because I think they're actually quite good.
They're great.
fun.
Plus, Nemesis is incredible. It's like if Batman was the Joker.
Right.
It's such a great series. Ultra violent, crazy. They're going to make that a film. I'm excited about that.
But what, to Roth's point, do I want a guy who is not a filmmaker shepherding a series of films? No, I do not.
Well,
at all.
Look at it this way. His Ultimates caused Joss Whedon to make the Avengers because basically his version of the Avengers is Mark Millar's Ultimates. It's Nick
Right.
Fury as Sam Jackson. It's all. I mean, everything that Mark Millar did as a writer was basically wholesale lifted and turned into the Avengers movie. So he gets total credit for that in my eyes. He basically it's following that series, like the way the Hulk was introduced. All these characters, sure, they didn't have Giant Man, big deal. I mean, there's like certain things that were changed, but that's basically like the blueprint, not the Avengers #1 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. It's Mark Millar's Ultimates is what everybody who loves the Avengers now, that's what they're watching. So I think it's a smart pick. I say let him roll with it. Give him some freedom. If he gives you guys an outline, stick to it. The guy's smart,
And I trust you much more knowing that, the content is, I don't know, the way it should be in the eyes of true, comic book fans like that. So will it translate? Yet to be determined. But I do at least trust someone who actually knows what they're talking about trying to helm it like that.
See, and that's I'm gonna differ with you guys on this one. I think the we were just talking about wrote The Dark Knight Returns.
Frank Miller.
Well, yes.
Frank Miller's a great example. I mean, if you haven't read the 300 book, I mean, yeah, Dark Knight. Everybody knows The Dark Knight Returns is like one of the best graphic novels.
Let me
of all
add
time.
that just came out on DVD. The animated
is good.
Incredible. It's
so
the
good.
best DC animated feature that they've ever put out.
Seen it.
If any fans of The Dark Knight Returns, the original graphic novel, want to see that animated, it's
so true.
It's so incredible. I was blown away. As people might know, I didn't like The Dark Knight Rises. This was my Batman movie of the year. It was the most incredible, fantastic film, and it's 2 parts. So they're not scrimping. It's basically like if you wanted to watch the comic book.
Yeah, it is so true to the comic book.
Yeah.
It is so good and so true to it. But once again, with Frank Miller, brilliant storyteller, amazing visual imagination. You read any of these books, this guy's got it. Don't let him at all be in any way, shape, or form in charge of a motion picture ever again. People go, oh, but Sin City. You are a naive fool if you believe for a second that Robert Rodriguez actually let him make any decisions on that film. That was for respect's sake. That was for geek cred's sake.
He's a visionary. He's not a director.
Yeah. Robert Rodriguez directed Sin City. Okay, Frank Miller did not. And when you let a guy who's great in one genre, or not one genre, but one medium, have control over something that's a different medium, you get the spirit.
Frank Miller is also
I'm
nervous. Not the nicest human being. So maybe that translates.
I don't know, Frank.
You know what I'll say about this is for the spirit, try watching an old 50s Bugs Bunny cartoon before you see the spirit, and then the spirit makes total sense. Because if you try watching the spirit like My City Screams, like it's Sin City or something, it's a total failure. But if you watch it as a live action cartoon that's goofy and stupid, like the very opening scene, he's basically fighting Sam Jackson in the mud, and they're like, they throw a kitchen sink. Everything in it's so goofy and cartoony. Like if you watch it as a live action cartoon, it just sucks, kind of. But it's not horrible. There's moments in it where you're like, oh, it's just supposed to be stupid.
That's going to be the new quote on the DVD box. It just sucks, kinda.
That's
John
right.
Schnepp.
What do you guys think the tone is going to be, though, that Mark Millar will establish? Because Marvel has such a distinguished tone at this point. What do you think Fox is going for with this pick? I mean, what are they trying to create for their franchise?
Well, you know what? That's a great question. It reminds me, and the question kind of reminds me of the quote we just read from Mark Millar about how I really want to thank Joe Carnahan, and I really want to thank not Guy Ritchie's buddy, Matthew Vaughn, for this. Instantly to me, my thought is, why is Joe Carnahan and Matthew Vaughn not taking on this consultant role? Like, are you telling me for a second that now Mark Millar is going to have some authority? Once again, understanding we don't know what his role really is, but me assuming worst case scenario, is he going to have some kind of authority over Matthew Vaughn as a producer for the next X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past? I really hope not. I mean, will it be his tone, or will it be the tone of Matthew Vaughn that he's been starting to establish with this new series of Marvel Universe? So to me, the question isn't even what tone will he bring, is that whose tone, or who's going to bring the tone? Is it going to be the individual directors, or is it going to be, is Mark Millar going to have that much influence?
Or is it a real collaboration between both visions?
So at that point, does he become more of a Kevin Feige than a Joss Whedon in a
way?
way?
God, I really hope not.
I think he's gonna. They brought him on because all of Fox's films minus the
X-Men First Class, yeah.
Are goofier, and they didn't.
It's a nice way to put
They
it.
didn't establish like any kind of like the way the Marvel the Disney films or whatever you want to call it, Marvel Studios, how they established their films. They have this kind of gritty realism, but there's also a lot of humor in them. They're really fun to watch. They're really rewatchable. Most of Fox's are not. I mean,
I'm not gonna say I really liked. I loved the first 2 X-Men films.
Same here.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really.
Not so much the first 2 Fantastic Four films.
Those are unwatchable.
Unwatchable.
So I mean, it's sort of like getting him involved. I think he'll be able to bring some kind of a little bit more like revised flavor to it.
I hope this doesn't exclude him from maybe actually taking a shot at writing some of these films. I'd love to, honestly, I would love to see him take a crack at writing one of the screenplays for like a future X-Men film. I would love to see that. I think that would be great. But
that's kind of what I imagine this to be, just like overseeing in what capacity we'll see. But like that's just kind of that's his proven track record as a really, really good writer. And so like I feel like that's kind of what, if it's set to his vision in that respect, I think we're going to be in an okay place.
All right, well, let's move on to the next topic here. I know that opinion in this room is very varied, if you will, on this topic, the topic of The Amazing Spider-Man, of course, the reboot that we just had this summer. Personally, I thought it was a fabulous film. I loved it. My big problem with The Amazing Spider-Man was that it was a little bit too much of a repeating the origin story, too much repeating of what we've already seen in just the film from 10 years ago. But I hit a point in the theater where I said in my own hand, okay, just accept that they're going to cover all this ground that we've seen in other films. Take it for what it is and evaluate it just on its own merits. And when I started to do that, I realized this is a damn good film that I think, aside from musical score, is superior in every way to the original Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire.
That was the first problem.
Loved this film. I thought it was wonderful. And, of course, they've just announced that Mark Webb, who I had questions about, honestly.
Me too.
Wait, is it the 500 Days of Summer guy?
Right.
Yeah.
Is doing a Marvel comic
Which I
book
loved, but yeah, completely different tone.
I did not see that coming at all. And then all of a sudden he came in. I thought he knocked it out of the park. He's officially returning for the second one. Of course, Andrew is as well, reprising his role as Spider-Man. I'm sure Emma Stone will be back. I'm sure. Although, I mean, we all know she's going to die at some point. Maybe it'll be this movie.
Right.
But anyway, your guys' thoughts. Amy Rose, let's start with you. You think this is good news, bad news? And what did you think of this Spider-Man film?
I completely agree with what you just said. Basically, when I saw it, like, it was better in every way. The casting, number one to me. Tobey Maguire, just doesn't do it for me in this role. Andrew Garfield absolutely killed it. I thought Mark Webb, helming the project was really good. Everything about it was just better. The way they did Spidey Vision and like all of that, I just thought it was better as a film. But I came out of there, it was still a little lackluster to me because it was the same exact telling, basically.
Yeah, in many ways.
In many, many ways. And, I did think it was better in every way, but it was done so soon. I know not from the original, but the third one wasn't made that many years ago, which was embarrassing. That emo part where Tobey Maguire, oh my God, in the bar.
That's my favorite part, the dance scene. That's my favorite part of that movie.
I literally, my jaw was dropped. I didn't even know if that was like real at that point.
Come on, you guys are too angry about it. It was awesome.
You're right. I love it. I'm hiding my love.
The dance part was the best part of Spider-Man 3. I will repeat that.
It was embarrassing. So I still had that. I'm like, but was it better in every way? Yes. Everything about it. So I do think it's a good move, but, it was a little stale at the same time because it was the same telling in that respect.
John?
All right, so Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, I liked it. I hated the Green Goblin. It's like, why did you turn him into a Power Ranger? And then, and years later, like just this summer, they were like, here, we'll release some like animatronic test footage of what we were going to do with the Green Goblin over Willem Dafoe's face. And it was like, looked so cool. It was like that same armor, but it was like a real goblin face. And I was like, why didn't they do that? They built it. They had it. I was like, that's when I just
I give
up.
Venom?
All right, so second Spider-Man movie, I thought was incredible.
Loved it.
Dr. Octopus, great storytelling. It was really epic, and I loved it. And that's my favorite of those Raimi films.
Agree.
Third one, just a mishmash of craziness. People trying to like studio wanted Venom, he wanted Sandman. Like I really wish they just stuck to like when they wrote the two screenplays to just shoot Spider-Man 3 and 4 back to back. They could have done Sandman and Vulture and introduce Venom with the
Venom
black
was
costume.
so bad in this take.
Well, that's what I mean. That didn't happen, so
And
you
I
can't go
love
back
him.
in time. That movie's really hard to watch.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I like the black costume stuff. There's some cool shots in it. I mean, it's not as horrible as everybody says. Spider-Man 3 is not like the worst movie ever.
It's pretty bad.
It's not, though. I mean, I could point to some posters here that are way worse
Whoa.
than Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 is not the worst movie ever.
No,
it's just,
not the
it's
worst
just
movie
a
ever.
disappointment. That's what it is. It's like, wow, you built it up, number one, and then number 2 is better. This one kind of blows.
Did you like Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane?
She was fine.
I never did buy. I thought that was a miscast, and not that I think she was horrible, but it just always stuck out to me that this isn't Mary Jane. But one of the things that really got to me, and it built through 1 and 2, which I liked. I love Spider-Man 2. But culminating in Spider-Man 3, it was getting so repetitive. First of all, every villain, from Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, all of them, actually a good man who something unfortunate happens to him and kind of makes him go insane, and now he's a bad man.
Pretty much.
But somewhere down deep, he's still a good man. Every single movie. Plus, in every single movie, talking about Kirsten Dunst. In Spider-Man 1, villain kidnaps Kirsten Dunst, dangles her from a high place
She almost falls.
to lure in Spider-Man as a trap. In Spider-Man 2, villain captures Mary Jane, dangles her from a high place, so Spider-Man comes and rescues her. Part 3, villain captures Mary Jane, dangles her from a high place.
Even a higher place.
Even a higher place as a trap. I mean, we just started to see, this is part of the reason why I always say that, hey, I love Sam Raimi. I think he's a genius of a director. But as a creative genius, it was time for him to move on.
Definitely.
And Spider-Man 4 with the Vultress. I don't know if you remember reading about the Vulture and his daughter, the Vultress. That was Spider-Man 4. So I was like, I'm glad.
John Malkovich said he was going to be
they
in the
already
film.
built the outfit.
Yeah, they were like,
John Malkovich.
They had the outfit ready to go. So it's one of those things where you're like, hey, you know what? I would have loved for them to do Spider-Man 4 and this new Spider-Man. But my opinion on the new Spider-Man, I didn't want to see it. I was like, I don't want to watch another hour of this origin story. I already know it. I granted, new kids want to see this stuff, whatever. I don't want to see it. I was pretty much against it. And then I saw it the day after Dark Knight Rises.
oh.
Because I was so disappointed with Dark Knight Rises. I was
man.
like, screw it. I guess I'll go see Spider-Man. I can't, now that I've been so disappointed. We'll see. Like, I had zero expectations, and I was blown away by this new Spider-Man. I think it was because I don't know what it was. If I was just, I had no expectations, but I didn't mind the new origin story. I thought Garfield was great as
He was
Spider-Man.
great.
Yeah,
and
he
the
really
chemistry
was.
with him and
The
Emma
whole
Stone
cast
were
was really
incredible.
good.
So good, right?
I thought the Lizard, the character, what the actor,
Ifans.
Ifans,
Yeah, he's
he was
good.
great. I would have loved just my Steve Ditko nerdiness was like, can't he keep that white doctor's outfit on for like a little bit longer? But I thought the Lizard was great.
Dennis
the special
Leary.
effects, the fight scenes, the Stan Lee cameo, the best one ever shot.
Yes.
ever
Yeah,
made.
that was a good one.
It really was I thought it was great. There was a couple of honky kind of corny sequences where he's like, swinging and the guys are all like lining up.
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
some.
yep. That's
there's-
my big down point
Yeah,
of the
there's
film.
a
That's it.
couple but there's a few of those moments in there. But overall, really satisfying.
film.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see the next Spider-Man movie. Just the way they developed everything.
Yeah.
So and I was surprised with Mark Webb. So I'm really glad he's returning. I think they brought him in because he's an emotional director. He can direct actors. And
Because
they're
his
like,
last name is Webb.
that's probably why. They're like, dude, can you get rid of that other B just so we can kind of rock this? But he really was able to get really great performances from everybody. And then, sometimes it doesn't work out with like the James Bond Quantum of Solace. It was like horrible film because the director did not know how to direct action.
Right.
But
So-
Casino Royale was awesome.
Casino Royale was incredible, but like that didn't work because they were like, well, we'll just let the second unit guys direct that, and then you get shaky cam weirdness and nothing really works together. But this, I think he worked really hard to be on set and make sure everything worked, even with the special effects that he wasn't familiar with doing. And now he's a seasoned vet, so I'm happy to see him come back.
And I think the one thing that this Spider-Man did, and I said this in my review, that was just really set it above, is that I think the mistake they made with the other Spider-Man films was that they told a Spider-Man story in the 2000s while bringing in a 1960s Peter Parker. And one of the big differences you notice right away in The Amazing Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield is a 2012 kid.
Exactly.
And they still bring the essence of what is Peter Parker. the socially outsideness, the kind of nerdiness, the whatever, but they put it into a 2012 package, and I thought it was great. And it made me buy in right away. So, hey, listen, folks, I want to let you know, there are a few movies opening up at AMC theaters this weekend. You got things like, what's the song and dance one? The one with all the girls?
Pitch
Perfect.
Pitch Perfect. Hilarious.
I love Pitch Perfect.
See, Pitch Perfect. It is fun. It is funny. It is a smart script. Kay Cannon of 30 Rock wrote it. Rebel Wilson. Go see it. It's funny.
Is it a comedy?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of comedy.
Is it like
funny.
Glee or something? Or
I haven't seen. Roth has seen it for us.
It's
Now,
really funny.
besides
Really?
Pitch Perfect, another film is opening up, a new Disney film with being directed by Tim Burton. The film is called Frankenweenie. Now, actually, earlier this week, our very own Roth Cornett had a chance to actually go down to Beverly Hills, I believe is where you met up with them.
It was literally like a dream. I loved Beetlejuice is my ringtone, the theme song. I loved Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands as a kid, and I went to Disneyland to interview Tim Burton.
That's right, it was at
and Winona
Disneyland.
Ryder. It was like out of a crack hallucination.
So listen, Frankenweenie opens this weekend in AMC theaters everywhere. Roth had a chance to go down, sit down, and talk with Tim Burton. We want to share that interview with you right now. Here, take a look.
So there's so many references to these iconic horror movies, obviously, in the film, but it also feels like you revisiting your literal youth, your upbringing in the suburbs, and then your creative beginnings at Disney.
Yeah.
What was kind of attractive to you about revisiting the past that way?
Well, I think it's all those things, because all those things were important. And this one was such a memory piece for me. It was easy to kind of go back and think about, that thing with the relationship with your dog, but then also your environment, your the other kids in school. I tried to base everything on real memories and the kind of weirdness of certain teachers and even the environment and the setting. And, the whole horror movie thing, because I always remember growing up in Burbank, which doesn't like a horror movie setting, but liking all those horror movies, I could always relate things to certain things, like the neighbors being the angry villagers, like in Frankenstein. So there were always references to how I grew up and my love of those films. So it just felt kind of natural to kind of just use all those memories and put it into one thing.
There's a great symmetry in it, too, because it's the black and white and the stop motion and these references to early cinema, but it's also 3D,
Yeah, that's
and
why I
really
was excited
modern.
about that. Because I love black and white, I love stop motion, and the idea of seeing that, because also with a stop motion film, there's something about the 3D element that makes you feel like you're actually on a stop motion set, because it's real. And you feel like the texture of what the artist put into it. So those three elements for me just sort of help highlight the sort of artistry that the people have put into the movie, which is an important also emotional element to it.
Well, yeah, because it reflects kind of like the thematic symmetry too.
It's like bringing an inanimate object to life, which is
Yeah.
Frankenstein. It's stop motion. They're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and the balance, even the dog being named Persephone, I loved that because it was the balance of the light and the dark. But you're bringing in some old cast members too from your previous films with Catherine O'Hara, Martin Landau, Martin Short, and of course Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
And Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands in particular meant so much to me growing up because I really related to that sense of alienation.
Yeah.
But what's cool here is that alienation or the misunderstood monster is set against this pure relationship of iconic, a boy and his dog.
Yeah.
So is this you kind of coming full circle?
Well, I think the interesting thing about kids, and I remember this feeling, and I try to sort of relate it in this film, is like, probably relating to the Victor character. I think most kids, you feel sort of alone and isolated, and I think, and people treat you like you're weird or something. But at the same time, I always felt quite normal, So Victor's slightly on the outside, but he's also normal, and that's why I also kind of made all the other kids strange, because I remember thinking about all the other kids in school seeming really strange to me, and so. But the thing about that feeling that you have, if you probably talk to any kid, I think it's a fairly universal feeling. I think most kids probably feel that sort of loneliness or isolation or misunderstood or lonely, and so that to me, I think, is something that a lot of kids feel, and I remember certainly feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. But then there's also the potential for this love, which I think is so beautiful.
Well,
in the
it's such
film.
a pure thing. I mean, the whole thing with your first, like a pet, it's unconditional. You know, you don't get that with people, but that, you know, if you connect with a pet, it's like your first love. You know, and so that's why it's always such a, you know, traumatic thing. You know, something happens to them, and it's your kind of first experience with those issues, and so that's why I want to sort of present them in a slightly more positive way and with basically a good message.
Thank you so much. I love the movie. Can't wait to see it in AMC screen.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
So once again, do not forget, Frankenweenie opens in AMC theaters everywhere this weekend. You can go and get your tickets for it right now by going to www.amctheaters.com. And while you're there, maybe you want to pick up some Pitch Perfect tickets as well. Listen,
Frankenweenie!
it is time, once again, as we do every week, we take questions from you guys in our mailbag. You can email us anytime 24/7 at amcmovienews@gmail.com. Email us your questions, your things you want us to bring up, and we will pick out some of the best ones, and we will address them on air. But listen, I want to let you know, we're going to try something a little bit different moving forward. We would love to give you guys the opportunity to perhaps send us a video email. That's right, send us a video email. You can email us as normal if you'd like, but we would love to get some of your video emails. So record yourself, send me a link at amcmovienews@gmail.com to your video, put it up on YouTube or whatever, where we can get our hands on it, and we'll pick one or two of them to put on the show next time. With that being said, we do have a couple questions that we picked out from the mailbag. Roth, you got them in front of you there. What do we have?
I do. This is from Black Bono. Awesome name.
We hear from him a lot.
2 questions. 1, this is for everybody in the studio. Which video game would you love to see turn into a movie? And 2, out of all the video game movies that have been out, though it hasn't been that many of them, which one do you guys think is the best?
Okay, so death, taxes, all video game movies suck. 3 undisputable, unbendable, and unbreakable laws
like
of the
Mario
universe.
Brothers? You don't like the Double Dragons? How come you not like those?
It's just one of those things. I'd say at this point, the most watchable one would probably be the first Tomb Raider. I'll say that's, to me, is probably the most watchable one.
I thought I was going to say, and you the first Street Fighter, but I was wrong.
Oh, man. Chun-Li, for sure.
Oh, yes, that's right. The Legend of Chun-Li or whatever that was.
I think Mario Kart, something like that would be so cool. We have the princess, we have the Yoshi, we have like all these cool characters that could almost be like an Avengers-esque kind of style, with just a bunch of wacky personalities. I think that'd be really cool.
How come they haven't made Pac-Man the movie yet?
Yeah.
I believe about 3 years ago they were working on it. There was
they got the sequel right there, Miss Pac-Man.
Miss Pac-Man, that's right.
Or
Pac-Man
Smash
Jr.
Brothers. Like, I guess Paperboy kind of was made into one with Premium Rush, right?
I think maybe that's where it originated from. I've always thought this. I thought there are 2 particular properties. Once again, I believe the reason all comic book movies suck is because, or not comic book movies, video game movies, is because video games, quite properly, are made for gameplay. They're not made for narrative. And they throw in little bits of narrative here and there, but don't be deceived into thinking that it's a really big thing of narrative. That being said, that's why I've always kind of thought there are 2 video game properties that stand out to me as having some potential. One is the World of Warcraft. I think there is such a vast world there with some really interesting stuff that a good writer can take and kind of make their own and do something with. The other, I think, is BioShock. I think that's
BioShock would be badass.
I keep forgetting
cool.
the name of that underwater world that they have.
Right.
But I think that world is pretty damn fascinating.
And scary.
And scary. Legitimately
cool.
creepy.
WoW is as geeky as it gets, so, by the way, John.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great if like it was like they finally made that Warcraft movie and you go watch it and it's just a dude like chipping away at wood and then it keeps cutting away to some other dude like mining gold and then 3rd act researching spells. So that's it. Credits. I've built a demon. Dun, 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 dun. Credits rolling. I'd go see it. My video game pick is Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot
I've played
of people
every single game that's come out. It's a great story. Mm-hmm. I think it would make a great film, and I love it. It's like
Final Fantasy.
I had somebody one of the emailers actually emailed me this week and said, or it might have been the previous week, and said, you know what video game I'd love to see turned into a movie? Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. To which I replied, yeah, they did. It was called Star Wars. You may have heard of it. They have done that one before already. But any other games off the top of your head?
You know what? Knights of the Old Republic, those first 2 RPGs were the first RPG game that I ever played because I was really kind of like, I don't want to have to click through all this dialogue. I just want to play the game.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was so well written when you went to these different worlds. I really
Yes.
just got completely immersed in it, and I never thought I would be playing. I would be like, I enjoy RPG games now. It was just like
I got really attached to my character that I created in that game too.
yeah,
Like,
completely.
yeah.
I went totally evil first, which is awesome, and then I was
gotta
like,
do,
no,
right?
I'm going to be all Jedi style about it. Not as much fun.
No.
Going
So
back
it's
to
way
the
more
evil
fun being
saves.
the
Yeah,
villain.
go back to evil saves. Kill everyone in the village. Harvest bones. Where go to the Sith planet. Upgrade. Yeah, it was like.
What are the, I know you're not a huge video game player, Roth, but is there any games you played that jumped off the top of your head that you'd like to play?
You know what I would like to see turn into a movie, and I'm going to be the probably one person on the planet that's going to say this. There is a game called Alan Wake, and they did this really awesome, awesome, what all web series should be. Very odd, Twin Peaksy, David Lynch-esque web series for it, and I would love to see that turn into a movie.
Now, when you say web series, was it live action?
Yeah, it was live action.
Because a lot of people told me you've got to play Alan Wake because it's
Yeah.
got this kind of Twin Peaks flavor.
Yeah, it's totally Twin Peaksy,
Wow.
David
Yeah.
Lynchy, and I would love to see
Did you
that
ever
turn
see
into
the
a
Dead
movie.
Island trailer?
No.
But the
Check-
trailer was great.
Check that out. The game, whatever.
I
Yeah.
played
The
a little bit
trailer
of the game, though,
was
oddly
so
enough.
terrifying,
Yeah.
and it's like it's so cool.
It's zombies.
That
Yeah.
reminds me of
And it's
another.
like a family, and like it's really cool.
I can't believe for games I want to see turn into movies, I didn't mention this. Leisure Suit Larry. Turn that into a movie.
That's Wreck-It Ralph right there, right?
All right, let's
so excited
let's
for that
move on
movie.
to the next question. What
Dig
else we
Dug,
got?
the sequel.
So, hey guys, love your show. Keep up the good work. This is from Ben B. It seems that Hollywood's past movies of The Punisher have never lived up to the hype for many fans. Do you think there's any chance of a possible Marvel reboot of The Punisher in the near future, or at least having him be a feature in another Marvel film? If so, who do you think should play him?
I'll look. I don't care if this is unpopular or not. I really enjoyed the last Punisher movie.
Same here.
I thought Ray Stevens was a great Punisher. I had a lot of fun. It was It reminded me a lot of the more recent Dredd movie. It was unapologetically violent. It was hardcore R. I dug it. I mean, the villain wasn't so great
little
in it.
inconsistent. I mean, he's a great actor, but
Yeah.
He's
they
a
were
great
kind of
actor.
like channeling Two-Face, Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face. A little
With
too
the-
hammy.
Yeah, with the villain.
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore.
So yeah, I really did like it. Could they reboot him again? I don't know, man. They've
Add it to the
rebooted
list.
Punisher 4 times already.
Right.
So I don't know, and I think Fox still owns the rights to him. I'm
I
not
think
sure.
if they rebooted Punisher and made it like a kid-friendly, like G-rated movie, I think that's probably
Like
the
Billy
way to go.
Zane in The Phantom
Yeah, get the guy who
size?
played Paul Blart Mall Cop to be Punisher. But it's
Kevin
like
James
Kevin
as
James.
Punisher.
the Punisher, and he's like,
I
put
want-
that candy down. Like kids running.
I
it's
want
all
to
like,
see him do something like
Yeah.
that.
He just wears the skull outfit, which none of the other characters ever wears that skull in all the movies except for the Punisher Warzone. He kind of had the skull on.
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
for some reason they're like, here, let's adapt this comic book where it seems like the main trait of this one character's outfit is this skull on him. Let's make sure that's not in it. Like that's a Thomas Jane one.
Did you
It's like
see
the original Dolph Lundgren one? Even the
As cool as he
the,
is.
the Ray Stevenson one, he wears it a little bit at the end. He's not wearing it the whole time.
Did you see the recent web video that was released at Comic-Con?
what the Tom Jane did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was all right.
I thought it was
fun.
pretty cool. I
it was
liked that.
cool. It was
Yeah.
sort of like, hey man, just go the extra step and like make it a film. Why not make a fan film? I mean, you made 10 minutes of
Well,
it.
I think the idea of that 10 minutes was to try to get some interest and get some people to give him some money to make it to make a film. But I don't know how you do it with the rights there. So I don't think
Right.
we can see him show up in the MCU in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because I'm not convinced at this point. I have to look it up, but I don't think he's actually a property. He belongs. The movie rights belong to Marvel anymore. I believe he belongs to somebody
What
else.
if Golan Globus rose from the ashes and made a brand new Punisher? But he was a robot.
He's a robot. All right, what else do we got?
Okay, I love this next question a lot, and I agree with you. Are you at all concerned? This is from Garrett P. Are you at all concerned that these comic franchises are overpowering modern cinema and destroying writers' and directors' ambitions to create original stories? Yes, there are a few exceptions here and there, such as Looper and Inception, but it seems like franchises of already established movies or properties, like we've been talking about, games, things like that, are taking over and leaving little room for original stories anymore. I realize there's more to a film than its story, but as a movie fan, I'm concerned that in today's world, favorite original titles of mine, like The Usual Suspects or Fight Club, wouldn't be made in favor. I mean, Fight Club was based on a book, but okay, wouldn't be made in favor of Transformers Part 8.
Okay, what's his name?
Garrett P.
Okay, Garrett P. Okay, I'm going to talk to you for a second. First of all, very eloquently put. I think you raised the issue in a very, very good way, and you are not one of the whining babies that I'm about to refer to. I have these discussions quite often with people who actually don't know what they're talking about. Who'll go, Hollywood's just all sequels now, and it's all franchises, and they can't make good original films anywhere, blah, blah. Stop. Just stop and think for a second, all right? Once again, Garrett, you put it well. I respect that. I'm talking about these other people. Stop for just a second and think about this for a second. There's probably about 400 wide-release films are going to get made this year. Like hundreds of films are getting released this year. How many comic book movies were there? 5, 6, stretch it, let's go 7. About 3%, 4%. They're not overpowering anything. There are a lot of movies getting made, there are a lot of studios producing films, and there's a lot of stuff. And let me add on top of that. Roth and I were actually in our office here the other day, and we had a representative from one of the big studios come in here. And we were sitting down and talking to them about one of their films that was out not too long ago. That was a really good film. And, and the kind of film that people wanted to see. I mean, they brought up, they said, people said they wanted this kind of film. So we gave them this film, and nobody went to go see it. You bring up Looper in the email, which is a great example. Looper is a great movie.
Great movie.
You should go see it. It made $21 million in its opening weekend, which for a lot of films, that's great. Mm-hmm. But no, for the type of film that this is and how good it is and solid it is, I was really disappointed.
Hotel Transylvania beat it.
Hotel Transylvania doubled it.
Yeah. No one is going to see Dread.
Yeah,
and
everyone who's I've talked to said it's incredible. Everyone I've talked to who's a comic book fan said it's great.
It's wonderful.
But to be fair, Dread is also based on a previously existing property.
But the point is, it's a type of movie
comic
that people were asking for. They wanted a hardcore, non-apologetic comic book style movie. The Punisher movie we referred to, hardcore violence, whatever. People would ask, no, give us hard R. But we give you hard R, and you don't go to see it. So I'd say I disagree with the statement for those two reasons. Number one, it's not crowding out original filmmaking because there are hundreds of films being made every single year that are not based on a comic book or a video game. I mean, hundreds, the vast, vast, vast majority of films are not based on that. So I dispute it because of that. But then as a side note, I also dispute it because a lot of times people who say, well, we want this and we want this, then support them when studios give them to you.
Boom, yes.
When Looper comes out, go see Looper. Because it's not just one of these artsy films that maybe will only appeal to a small percentage. Looper is a great movie that is going to appeal to you. You will like Looper if you give it a shot. And so when they give you these movies, go support them. But yeah, I don't think they're being crowded out. Maybe that's just
But they're not just
rebooting
comic book movies. They're rebooting every genre type of movie.
But I was going to say that's I don't know how young Garrett is, but that's how cinema has been ever since it was created. It's just that comic books are the flavor of the decade.
Yes, and they're getting a lot of buzz and A-list talent and directors.
Yeah, movies there's aside from the United States, there's also like I think 14,000 movies made every year. The rest of the globe also makes movies. So there's so many movies that are made that these, whatever you want to call it, like sometimes horror is the new fad, or now it's superheroes, and then it goes back and forth. We have every single movie that's coming out in the next 3 weeks is a family oriented CG movie that's in 3D. So I mean, that's I think the bigger thing that's bigger than superheroes is like the 3D
that shouldn't
3D
even be
little
there.
animals running around. That's what is going to be taken over now. But it's threatening regular filmmaking is not really.
It's hot. It's hot right now, and the people who really want to see them are going to keep seeing them.
I think it's definitely, it comes in waves. I mean, the independent films that were being made in the 90s, it's different. But guess what? Now we have the web. I mean, there's little things that have completely
A really good
changed.
indie film that just came out, Perks of Being a Wallflower, that was based on a book, was fantastic. So much heart, great acting. It's not getting a lot of love, but it's original, fresh idea as well. You really have to cater it to your audience, and people want to spend money here.
Now let me bring up a couple of films that are opening up just in the next couple of weeks.
And I love The Usual Suspects.
You
by the
have
way, one of my favorites.
Usual Suspects is my
One of
top
my
six.
favorite, no
my top
question.
6 all-time
So good
favorite
call,
films.
Garrett.
Okay, so you've got Taken 2, sequel. Going to what you were talking about, sequel. But also in the next couple of weeks we have Frankenweenie, quite original. Pitch Perfect.
So good.
VHS, which is really good, by the way. Butter, not so good, but very original. You've got Sinister, very original film. You've got the amazing Argo, the Ben Affleck film. We've got Here Comes the Boom. Maybe not your cup of tea, but it's an original film.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
You got Seven Psychopaths,
Awesome.
which
Can't wait.
Roth saw
Yeah.
and she loved.
Awesome.
She has a love affair with
awesome.
the Shih Tzu. Right?
Here we go. That's like 8-9 films in the next couple of weeks. Taken 2 is the one sequel. You
Same
just
exact
can't, You just
story.
can't make an argument that the comic book films, the video game, that the franchise films are maybe overshadowing because of popularity,
Yeah.
but they're certainly not pushing out any of those other films because here they are. Now the question is, will you, as a film goer, go out and support it? I mean, Roth, you had a perspective on this.
I do, and it's just to reiterate a couple of things, like Schnepp was saying. Since cinema's inception, there have been cyclical sort of favorites and or genre favorites. So at one point, studios were pushing out westerns, and there
Yes,
were so
good
many
point.
westerns because they were hugely popular.
Vampire
And
movies.
and then today, and in today's world, what stands out are the exceptional westerns of that time, and the ones that were not are forgotten about.
Hundreds
And
of
then-
thousands of
Yeah.
them.
many. And then there were cop films, gangster films.
Yeah.
I mean, and then in those cycles, in the 70s, we had an era of great sort of inventive, original stories. We had an era of that. We had that again in the 90s, where independent had a boom. I'd like to see another boom like that personally because I just enjoy those kinds of films. But to what John was saying, you have to state your opinion with your dollar bills. You have to pay to go see the movies that you want to support on the opening weekend, because I'll tell you the truth, what the studios are looking at is that opening weekend. That's what they want. That's what they're pushing. And the marketing is going to go behind the films that are currently popular. These are the films that are currently popular. We don't go by star systems. We go by previously existing franchises. So, and having said that, giving credit it's due, this Spider-Man was better than the other ones. Aesthetically, the visuals were better, the CGI was better, the casting was better, the acting was better. Giving credit it's due. Anyway, moving on.
Okay, and I think that's it for the. We've run out of time. We've hit our limit, folks. By the way, thank you again for sending us your emails. Keep sending us your emails at amcmovietalk@gmail.com, and by all means, make a video email for us. Keep it to 20 seconds.
That's dangerous, John.
Keep it to 20 seconds. Well, Gray, who's on here quite a Gray Drake is on here. She's always asked for pictures. I'm asking for video. Woo. Yeah, send us a video. Keep it to 20 seconds. Keep your point and your question short, clear, and then send us a link to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And if we think it's good enough, we will put your video on our next episode. That will do it for us. I want to thank, as always, first of all, sitting back there, our regular here, Ms. Jenny Roth-Cornett.
Woo.
Yay.
I want to thank Amy Rose Eisenbach.
What's up?
Mr. John Schnepp.
What's going on?
Our regular production manager, Dennis Zen, is actually off on vacation in Hawaii right now, so we want to wish him the best. But we want to thank Kareem over here, who has been handling all those duties for us, taking care of that stuff. Thank you so much, Kareem. And to you guys, once again, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you either click the button that you see on the screen right now or visit us at youtube.com/AMC Theaters and click subscribe so you can follow us there. Share this video around. Tell people about AMC Movie Talk. And don't forget to join us again. Thanks a lot for coming. My name's John Campia, and until next time, bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and join us at amctheaters.com and watch one of our other AMC Movie News videos below.